Ừ. 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 Yes, Honorable. Morning. How are you? Good to see you. Welcome back you came today from Bali? How was Kibuku? Yes, was cool. How are you? Morning. How are you? It was good. I was not there. I was in Soro. How was the function? Sure. It's fine. Oh, it is a jail.
What fix it here, you can move close.
Cool. How are you? Well done. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable members. Yes, I am Patrick Katabazi, and I'm the coordinator for the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on social protection. We are going to start today's meeting on the important subject of SAGE. Other people call it SAGE, others people call it SAGE, other people call it SAGE, for whichever name you call it. This is a program, the social assistance grants for empowerment, and we want to appraise ourselves on the challenges and opportunities. And we hope that by the end of this engagement today, we would have fully understood the implementational aspects of this program as of today. And that will be very important because we need to know what is happening in our constituencies regarding this program. And we then need to understand the answers that we need to give when we are asked, but also the questions that we could as well ask as honorable members of Parliament. So I am going to read through a round of introduction, and then we shall start. And it's very important that we get to know who is here. I know quite a number of people are going to join us, but nonetheless, I think we should start. They should be able to find us on our way. So I want somebody to assist me with the microphone. Oh, we can speak without microphone. Okay, fine. So let's start with this line, and then we...
Morning, I'm Apai Susan, assistant to Honorable Badiri.
Good morning, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Babadiri, executive committee member representing ex-members of parliament. They are also vulnerable, so they must be represented here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Havako Melissa Naimagule, woman member of parliament for Yumbe district. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oluo Joseph Andrew. I represent the people of Darama County.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Paul Onapa. I'm the Deputy Head Expanding Social Protection Program at the Ministry of Gender.
Good morning, honorable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Salongo Kakembo Mikaili Mbwate Kamwa. I am the Member of Parliament representing Entebbe Municipality.
Good morning, members. I'm Sevikali Joel, MP in Twetwe, Chankwanzi District.
Morning, honorable members. My name is Mouma Milton Kalulu, MP Chigulu South Iganga, and the Secretary General of the Forum.
Morning, Chair, colleagues, members of Parliament, the staff from the Ministry of Gender. My name is Judith Pisachan, the District Woman Representative Noya, the spokesperson of the Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sarah Pendi, Member of Parliament, Tororo District. I'm hearing Secretary General spokesperson. I am a couple.
Yes, we are going to be introducing ourselves as members come. But nonetheless, I think we should start. Other members are going to join us on the way. We are also live on Zoom. There's a link that has been shared. Those who are on other larger platforms, for members of Parliament, you can forward. There's one that is on the Social Protection Forum. You can forward so that members who are traveling, there are those who said they are still on the way coming, they can catch our conversation on Zoom, but also on YouTube, so that we can have all members of Parliament and the stakeholders that have been invited on board. Like I had indicated, today we have a very important subject: the social assistance grants for empowerment. I know this is a hot issue in our constituencies where we come from. There are many things that are coming up. There are challenges that are in there, but we also see a lot of opportunities in our communities. So we thought this is a very important awareness raising session for members of Parliament, for many reasons that I did talk about earlier, but I could emphasize. One could be to equip you with knowledge that can assist you to answer questions when you're in your constituency regarding this program. But also, it can equip members of Parliament with information that can assist them to ask the right questions, especially to the executive. And today we are privileged to have the head of the expanding social protection program in this country, and is none other than Mr. Stephen Kasaija. You can stand up for recognition. So this is the gentleman who heads the program in this country. And the program is under the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. So we're extremely privileged to have people from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development to tell us, where is SAGE? Where is it? When you go in our districts, where do we find it? How is it performing? What could be the challenges? And what opportunities are there for us so that we can tap in? So it's going to be a very exciting presentation. And I want to encourage us to stay put and possibly also invite some members of Parliament that you know who are here so that they can join in, because this doesn't usually happen quite often. We normally, I think members of Parliament interact with these guys when we are grading them on many other aspects. But usually for information purpose that is so specific to a government program, this is a very golden opportunity. And on that note, I want to invite the chairperson of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, Honorable Flavia Kabahenda, to officially welcome us. And after that, we shall go into the presentation mode. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good morning, honorable members of Parliament, and good morning, colleagues from the ministry and our staff. I am Kabahenda Flavia Rwabhoro, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you, honorable members, for braving the morning. I'm sure some of you could have even traveled like I did from up country, but for you to be here to start this meeting is very humbling on my side. I want to thank you so much for loving the subject matter, and I want to sincerely thank you, honorable members of parliament, for the roles you are playing in your constituencies to stand in even where we have got challenges with the implementation of SAGE. I can imagine the amount of older persons that call you every morning, the amount of older persons that come to your courtyards to ask why, what is happening? You are not speaking for us, you are not talking, and then you end up giving them some transport to go back as you promised to sort them. So here we are, that we should continue to stand in, but not only stand in, but find a solution. Honorable members, the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection has a number of objectives, but they are very key. And the very, very key of them are for us as members of parliament to ensure effective implementation of SAGE. You can give marks whether it is effective. 2, we need to ensure that there is policy and legal framework to ensure a system and not tokens and favors. You know, up to now, some people think the older persons are claiming favors. The older persons are claiming a right. It is their right to have this money. It is their right for this government to give them a dignified living so that they don't fall out like ants and grasshoppers. These are people who have lived in this country. They have struggled for this country. Some of them played a very big role in the independence of this country. They are the ones who own actually much of the property we see in the country. I want to tell you that more than 60% of the land in Uganda is owned by older persons. And that is why possibly the young people are fighting them away, because they want to grab their land in the disguise that they are developing when they did not even work for the same land. And how much more would we really look after these older persons? Some people will tell you that we are making them lazy, that they should not plan for their old age, that we are giving them money to go and drink and get drunk, so we are orienting drunkards. But honorable members, you know very well that it is only these very few years that we have seen more people getting into civil service. But the older persons now of 60, 70, and 80 are those ones where minimal of them were in the public service, that they can even expect some kind of pensions. Majority of them do not expect any other thing. They lost their energy, they lost their zeal, they cannot enter the productive system, they cannot even enter the service sector. They are supposed to be looked after. In Uganda, we may not adopt homes because that's not in our cultures. For us to throw our older persons in homes and then we sit comfortably in our bungalows. The older persons are supposed to age with their relatives, with their children, so that they age gracefully. And therefore, this government, on affirmative action, pledged to look after the vulnerable persons in this country, inclusive of the older persons. We are expected to finance, advocate for financing of SAGE. So, honorable members, we are here. It is very unusual for government to put a program and come back to evaluate it. Usually programs have found each other even before you evaluate the one you did yesterday. The following day, another new one comes up. For us, we are seriously looking at this SAGE. You are aware that the older persons are now going into 8 months without money. And the Ministry of Finance is still telling us that even that money they owe must be pushed as a domestic area into the next financial year. How much more do we want them to wait? Their children are not in school. They look after the vulnerable children. And by the way, by the time they send you to stay with your grandmother, you are vulnerable. Not so? Otherwise, every able family would look after their children. But by the time they send you to your grandmother, you are a vulnerable child. You may not necessarily be an orphan, but when they send you to Jaja, then you know things with your parents are not running well. Or you could be even disabled that they don't want even to stay with you. So just believe that the older persons are living with vulnerable children who have not yet even gone to school because they can't get any scholastic materials. And we are here saying that the money that we owe them should be pushed as domestic areas into the other financial year. Are we sincere to these older persons? Are we human? Do we want to find them stealing? You know, it is at this time that the older persons need to find a companion in form of giving them a dignified welfare. And even in our traditions and cultures, the older persons are supposed to be supported. It's unfortunate that most of them lost their children in war, in HIV/AIDS, and other disasters that you know. And so they have had to live with these orphans. That's unfortunate. And the other children of theirs have migrated to look for Kweyiya. So they are left all alone. And the support they would expect from their children is not there, and they are the ones who are expected now to support the orphans and vulnerable children they live with. Statistics show us that close to 4.8 million of the children we have in the country live with older persons. If the country did children's homes and supported these children, 4.8 million, how much would they be spending? But this older person who you give 25,000 and it supports the 8 orphans or 10 orphans that they live with, I think government should take this seriously. They should not take them for granted. Let us be sure and sincere to the older persons. And I would like honorable members to provoke you that it is time for us to stand up for the older persons. Because I know few of us may even be thinking, even at our level here, I don't know how many of us every month think about these older persons. I always ask this when I'm in the community meetings in my constituency, at burials, at other events. Who of you, members of the community, remember when you sell your maize to buy at least a leso for this old woman, at least in a year? No one. They sell their maize and continue with life, and they don't think that the older persons matter around them. Is government going to behave like that? When it promised affirmative action, when it promised a dignified livelihood and welfare to this country? So we have all the tools, honorable members. There is a year we stampeded a budget here in the parliament because of only 2 billion counterpart funding that the government was supposed to put when the development partners were giving most of the money. And government could not even meet 2 billion of its counterpart funding. And we stampeded the budget here until they had to provide it. So members, the onus is on us that we can change this and make sure that the older persons get and live a dignified welfare, not as a favor, but as a right. So I don't want to preempt your discussion and your analysis of how SAGE is performing. The opportunities are very enormous. Some of the opportunities for us as members of parliament is to know that from the beginning, SAGE was supposed to be integrated into the district development programs. But what we see in our districts is not integration. What did we mean by integration? It's that when the older persons come at a pay point, Why wouldn't the DHO deploy health workers to come and test their pressure and diabetes when they are there? Because when they expect money, they are sitting the way you are sitting, each one waiting to be called. But during that time, the health workers would be taking them through how they should manage their health, what they should eat and not eat, how their nutrition should be taken, and those kind of things. And then the other payday, the agriculture officer comes with his staff. But districts don't do that. And yet, they are not expected to pay even an allowance to older persons who have been called for SAGE. They are waiting for their money. We would take advantage of that. Even we, the honorable members of parliament, at paydays, please just have time, go and talk to those older persons. If you have a clinician who is your friend, you could go and take their BPs, because for them to go and do a BP check at any clinic, they have to pay 5,000, somewhere 10. So you will have saved them if you went with your clinician as a friend and you offered that so that you can interact with them. So we have all those opportunities as individuals, as government, and to ensure that the districts integrate their development programs into this SAGE, so that the SAGE older persons can benefit from especially sensitization, giving them the right information for them to take their lives very, very importantly, in the way they eat, in their lifestyles, in the way they sleep, in the way they live, in the way they work, activity. Like now we have Bob, he's here, he wants to tell us, he wants to take advantage. Those are the opportunities I'm talking about. He wants to take advantage here so that he can, in 3-4 minutes, tell us how we should be fit. Because now the sausages have already come, Bob. So you need to tell us whether we can go ahead or we eat 1 instead of 2 so that we can remain fit. Such advantages can be taken when the older persons are getting this money. You can just design yourself. I'll go to that pay point, talk to those older persons. Usually they are almost a whole parish there, although 80 plus are not very many. But at least when they go back home, they will tell the people at home that they checked my pressure, I'm not doing very well, they checked this, and they have advised me, and we shall have done this country a service and the older persons. So I thank you very much for coming, and I pray that we really discuss with justice. And I'm hearing in the corridors that there is a supplementary which may come before March ends. So honorable members, what are you saying in your discussion? Okay, let me leave that to you. And again, that the older persons have lodged a case in Equal Opportunities Commission for being discriminated upon. When the Constitution says they start at 60, and for us we give money at 80, and they are not in Emioga, and PDM, they don't seem to see themselves, they have now lodged a case against government for discrimination. So these are issues that we need to take seriously. When I look at the budget called circular, instead of the 10 billion that His Excellency promised to the older persons for their older person livelihood support, the budget called circular has only provided 3.8 billion. So we don't know how these guys are going to use that to support the older persons who could still be active into the economics of the country, to be supported, to have a kiosk and be busy there doing something. So that money is intended that the older persons who can still be in the service sector can be supported to use and bring back the way we have been giving money to women and youth and those grants. So members, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this meeting and to pray that we come up with resolves which we shall put on the floor to ensure that this government is tasked to live up to its commitments. I thank you so much. Have a good day.
There's the microphone. New members of parliament who have just joined us could introduce themselves. I think we can still hear you without a microphone. So we are going to start from the first line. If you haven't introduced yourself, it would be very good to introduce yourself at this moment.
My name is Doris Namuka. I'm a member of Parliament from Ogola County South. That is Sembabule District, and a member of this forum. They needed to know I'm a shadow minister in the alternative government.
Oh, great.
Good morning, Chair and members. I'm Maneno Zumra, Woman Member of Parliament of Obong District. Thank you.
I'm Chiega Hilary Innocent, also known as Dr. Hilderman. On the forum, I represent MPs from the Central Region. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adidwa Abdu, representing people of Bokoli South in the Namaingo District.
Good morning. My name is Fred Opolot. I represent Pingere County, Serere District.
Good morning, members. I'm Christina Kello, Member of Parliament representing the people of Erute North Constituency, Lira District.
Morning, Chair and members. My name is Abeja Susan, representing Otuke District.
Good morning, members. My name is Agasha Juliet Washisha. I represent the people of Metoma District.
So thank you very much for your round of introductions. So we are going to start. We have one presentation, so we are not going to take many presentations, only one presentation. But we need to be very attentive and take notes so that after this presentation, we can ask questions and get feedback from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, the ministry that is at the forefront of this presentation. We are going to circulate copies of this presentation as well, so that if he gets a point and you think it could be a source of your question, you simply note, so that if the time for questions come, you're spot on. And without much further ado, I want to invite Mr. Stephen Kasaija, Head of Program and Management Unit at Expanding Social Protection Program. And if I have not introduced you very well, you will be able to also tell us your other accolades that possibly you have. So I think this is going to be the platform. Or you want to present from there? Okay.
I think I already have a microphone.
Yeah, you already have a microphone.
Thank you, Chairperson, Patrick, honorable members of Parliament. It's a pleasure for us to be invited to share with you an update of where we stand with the implementation of the SAGE program. In this presentation, I will make an introduction so that all of you get to know where SAGE comes from and what are the objectives of this program, what are the key milestones which have been registered under this program, and most importantly, what are the impacts and transformational effects of the SAGE program. Then I will also talk about the key program challenges. I think these are the areas of interest for you as you draw your strategies moving forward, and share what are the opportunities. And I will conclude by presenting what areas will require your support. Allow me to go straight into the introduction and background. Honorable members, you'll know that social protection refers to measures which are put in place to reduce vulnerability and enhance resilience to life cycle risks and shocks of the population. What do we mean here? Ideally, I would say each one of us is vulnerable if we don't put in place measures to address possible shocks which we could face. For instance, we know that in this country, people, when they are working in government, for instance, we always have what we call a pension. People are permanent and pensionable. It means when they reach old age and they are retiring, they'll have something to fall back to. The salary doesn't stop all of a sudden, something continues to come to them. Our brothers and sisters who work in the private sector, in the formal, there is also an arrangement that when you are working, you are forced by law, something is put for you in National Social Security Fund. Contribute something, your employer also contributes some 10%, well, for you, contribute 5%. At the end of the day, when you reach 55, you can fall back to that and you have some income to go ahead. Though we realize that currently there are very many who are in the informal sector, so they don't have that arrangement, but good enough, I think the recent law you have passed allows that there could be some voluntary participation savings. So that's the approach. Now, for the future, for those who are still young and going ahead, those arrangements will help them. But we have older persons who worked in that informal sector, and now they are there with us. Some are 70, 60, some are 80, some even are 100. They are still with us, and they didn't have that arrangement. They didn't work in government, they didn't work in the formal, but they are just there. They either have to rely on the child, if they have the children or grandchildren, and some of them we have seen really even don't have those people. They are at the mercy of the communities, the goodwill of the community. So that gives us a background that there are life cycle risks which social protection could help us. And I think it's from that angle that government had to come up with this idea of having a social protection program. We know that social protection directly reduces poverty because it can provide support to excluded citizens to access other services. And it also gives us a foundation to build our productive livelihoods if we have social protection. And I think as we go ahead, you'll see how SAGE has helped us to give evidence that this is what social protection can do in reducing poverty. This program, the design process started around 2006, and that's when the ministry tried to focus on issues of poverty and vulnerability for our country, and we made sure that it becomes part of our development strategy. As far as that 2006, in the PIP by then, there was a mention of social protection as a key development approach. With support of our development partners, by then DFID, which is currently called FCDO, then the government of Ireland, and initially UNICEF also was with us, we were able to pilot the Senior Citizen Grant under the SAGE, which is the Social Assistance Grants for Empowerment. We also were able, through that program, to think about a policy framework, because every time you introduce a new idea in Uganda, you have to be aware that if you don't have a policy, finance will challenge you. Which policy are we funding? So at least we made sure that in this design, policy was a priority, and we were able to move ahead and develop the policy. So we agreed to do a pilot in 15 districts, and under that pilot of SAGE, we encouraged the Senior Citizen Grant as the key aspect, and each older person would receive, we started with 23,000, but later on, by then we had a provision that we are catering for inflation. After every 2 years, they would be adding 1,000. Until we reach 25,000. And I think later on, as we discuss, you realize that we have been on 25,000 for the last 7 years. We have not done any increment to cater for inflation. SAGE has been, what I can say here, that SAGE has been extremely successful through the impact it has generated among the receiving individuals and households. And all of us, I think, from the communities where you live, people know SAGE is a very good program once the older persons receive it, irrespective of the current challenges we are having. But people still believe that this is a good program and provides a service which is required by our older persons. Now, what has the journey been like? 2010, 2015, that's when this program was really put on the ground. And by then we were covering older persons who are 65 years and above. But for Karamoja region, we are covering 60 years and above. The reason being, at that time, there were very few people who were 65 years and above in Karamoja region when we looked at the statistics. So that was given as affirmative action. But also Karamoja has been very vulnerable. By then, the access to health education was very low. So a person who was 60 by then, if you looked at them, you may think they are 80. So in terms of targeting, we are using community targeting. It was a challenge. So, but affirmative action was given. 2015, 2016, we had a phased rollout where an addition of 40 districts with your support, and I think we wish to thank this committee, this forum, the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. It played a major role in creating that awareness at this higher level in Parliament to make sure that everybody bought in. And it was agreed that time that instead of keeping the program in only 15 districts, let us try to add additional districts in a phased manner. And we were able to start by covering the oldest 100 people per sub-county. That was the approach we took. And we targeted an addition of 40 districts over a 5-year period. Good enough, I think, with your support. In November 2018, we had to agree, government agreed with Parliament that we should have a national rollout. And we started planning for that. And the proposal was that this time, let us look at the resources which are available and increase the age so that all the new people who are going to come on board, we start at 80 years and above. But in the process, make sure that you keep all those who have already joined, whether they were 60, whether they were 65, we would keep them on the program. So that has been achieved. Objectives of this expanding social protection program, where SAGE is found. One of the objectives, the key objective, is to expand provision of direct income support, but also look at the contributory social security, as well as social care and support for vulnerable individuals and households in the country. So we are not only looking at the SAGE is a direct income support, it is non-contributory, but we are also promoting in the policy which has been developed that there should also be the contributory social security. And on the basis of that, I think that's why we have been able to lobby also to make sure that in the current law on NSSF should be open so that other people can also contribute, those who are in the informal sector. And alongside on our side as ministry, we are also evolving a strategy on social security, extending social security to the informal sector. As we talk, the discussions are on, a team has already been hired, and they are evolving that strategy, consultations are happening so that we can support that move. Also, social care is important because some of these older persons, even when you give them 25,000, they are extremely vulnerable. They will need other support around, either community. If the person is sick, even if I have this money, if nobody comes to get me a border, I will not move. So we are also trying to make sure that that one happens. Those who are homeless, something should be done so that they can get accommodation. So the second objective is to strengthen the institutional framework for coordinated social protection service delivery in this country. And we are moving on that. The third objective is to enhance the enabling environment for development and implementation of the National Social Protection Policy. The policy is currently on board, and we are trying to make sure that all government departments own up and come in to play a role in the implementation of social protection. And as I talk now, different areas are being driven. You have heard of the health insurance under Ministry of Health. Ministry of Public Service is there also trying to reform the public service scheme. And yes, other stakeholder, Ministry of Finance, are also being engaged to make sure that we have a comprehensive social protection system. Now, what is the current scope of SAGE? We have already said that we have now moved from the pilot and the phased rollout. We are now currently in all the 146 districts in the country. And we are targeting 80 years and above, while keeping all the other people whom we had in the pilot, the 15 pilot districts, as we moved on. We are also working with local governments to enhance their capacity, because delivery of this program we rely very much on the local government, districts, local governments. At each district level, we have a senior community development officer who has been assigned specifically to coordinate SAGE implementation activities in that district. Then we work at every sub-county, there is a sub-county community development officer, and then the parish chief is a key person in this because they control all the operations at that lower level. But good enough, we have many other structures. We have our council for older persons, down up to the village level. All those work along to make sure that the right people are identified, they are supported during payments, identification, registration, and payments. Yes, so what you need to note here that this program has been initiated and implemented with support from development partners. I've told you UNICEF, FCDO, and Ireland, the government of Ireland, have been with us. But unfortunately, their support to government comes to an end in this June. The development partners have been with us, I think, for about 10 years, but they have now said that's enough. It's not that they are running away completely. They will support other aspects, other programs, but for this area, government has to take off fully. So that's one area we need to think of. So what are the key program milestones? I have talked about the National Social Protection Policy. That has been a key milestone because it has given us clarity. What is social protection? What is not social protection? We are now clear with that policy. We have also provided senior citizen grants of over 479.7 billion to over 393,000 older persons, and that is between 2010 up to now, January 2022. And that has happened everywhere. There is a table which will be circulated to you. I think it was printed. It shows how much money has been spent in each district and the number of older persons who have ever received that. But as I talk now, by January, our existing payroll was of 304 senior citizens receiving that grant. Others, as I will talk later on, we have had challenges. Some are still in the process of being migrated because they were being paid under Postbank. But as we talk now, we have gone to Centenary, and there is a requirement by Bank of Uganda to open an account. You have to have a national ID. Yet some of these older persons came on the program when the national ID had not yet come. So it was community identification and everything. But now they are required to have, and the process is taking some time, but we are working with NIRA to sort that out. We have been able to put in place the system for social protection delivery at least throughout the country, at least every corner. There is a system now, a person knows that they can be reached and they will receive their payments. We have built capacity at national and local government level structures to coordinate this program. That one is there. We have developed and rolled out a gender and equity strategy to provide a step-by-step guide of assessing and mainstreaming gender and equity issues into social protection program. At least if you reach the pay point, somebody is more extremely vulnerable, there will be arrangements now. We are trying to provide that there will be some wheelchairs. In the past, you have seen people coming when they are being carried. We are trying to provide arrangements that we can have alternative recipients. As you register, you also register with an alternative. So that if you are extremely sick, you shouldn't be carried to the pay point. Your alternative can come and and pick the money. So we are trying to address those issues of equity. Other key program milestones, we have developed the operational framework to guide all state actors on implementation of social care and support services. That framework has recently been developed. We have also developed guidelines for labor-intensive public works, which is cash for work, to enhance job creation and social protection. This may not be for very older persons, but the other community members, we are trying to extend that social security. And this is working very well, especially in the northern region. Cash transfers, cash for work is a good approach. Public works are happening. And at NUSAF, we are also collaborating with them, and work is going on there. We have developed a framework to guide the targeting for indigents. I think working with the Ministry of Health, under this program, we have been able to support them to see how they can identify the indigents. That report has been shared with the Ministry of Health as they develop the health insurance scheme. We have developed a single registry for social protection. This is a system which we have put up under the ministry, but it networks with all other programs of government which offer social protection services. So that we can see which older person, for instance, got money under NSSF, because the system is talking, which older person is receiving money under the NUSAF. So that one we can know. We can also know who is a pensioner, because under SAGE, we don't pay pensioners. If you're already a pensioner and you're receiving a pension through government, then you don't qualify even if you are 80, because we know you have another facility for it. But through that single registry, the various MISs can pick each other and we know what is happening. We have also developed a disability information management system to enhance social protection targeting among the persons with disabilities. That system exists. Now allow me to go to impacts. What are the key impacts and transformational effects of the senior citizen grant? And here you can trace this through first, what beneficiaries use the cash when they receive it. This has been generated through the surveys we do during payments. We have an arrangement where people collect information. What did you spend your last money on? What do you intend to spend the one you are getting now? So you can see the biggest area there is food, which shows you that most of these older persons are food insecure. They will tell you, when I get this money, I'm going to buy food. So that one we have seen consistently, several surveys which have been done, it keeps emerging. Medical is another area. Older persons will tell you, I'm going to at least visit a doctor. We have had testimonies, somebody says, I've been with this chronic sickness for long, but when I got my 10 months, because it delayed to come and I got 10 months when I joined, I was able even to be transported to Mulago and I accessed somewhat service. A physician saw me and told me what my ailment is. And I think that is a good thing. Education, as the Honorable Chairperson mentioned, many of these older persons stay with children. We have even seen, last time we were in Karamoja, we saw where people are supporting, older persons are supporting children even up to secondary. Even to university, saying, yeah, this child is able to go, at least the transport is provided and the person feels comfortable that that is happening. Education is also a major area. Investment. These older persons, where we have moved, you'll see even the pictures later, they are investing when they get this little money. And this has been a major area. People say, but how can you invest 25,000 shillings? But it has been a shock for us that once the money is consistently coming, the people's thinking also changes. We have seen older persons forming their own circles. Like in those pilot districts, they would form their own circle and say, I'm getting 25,000, I will go home with 10, I give the other person the 15. So if they are 20, the other person goes with 300. The next day you see a person who was in a grass search has bought iron sheets and the house is what? Being roofed. The others, you say they all agree that now, when I get this 300 from all the other colleagues, I will buy a cow. And they bought the cows, they bought goats, bought chicken. You'll see the pictures. And that's where we have moved. Shelter is one area. They hire labor within the community. So this little money you are giving these people ends up creating some economic activity within the employment. And you'll see some studies we have done which show that SAGE districts we are receiving SAGE even had better employment impacts, growth impacts, because of that money which was coming. Looks small, but when you amalgamate what is coming in, those economies do much better. We have seen alcohol. Yes, Chairperson mentioned people will drink the money, but fortunately, it ranks almost among negligible numbers. But who will protect me if I have earned my salary, even to take a beer? But now we want these older persons, condemn them that they should not take a beer, but so maybe they grew up taking it. So, but at least it has not been a prominent area in the implementation of this program. What I was talking about, that if you looked at meals where people are spending on food, this was a study which was done making the investment case for social protection. And it was trying to show in SAGE districts, for instance, you have not moved, eh? Can you move to the next slide? Okay, that's the one. Back. Yes, so that is about meals. People taking meals. You can see in SAGE districts, the percentage change in households eating fewer meals than 2 meals. There was a reduction of about 6.07 percentage points. Whereas non-SAGE, there was a 5% reduction. And overall, the change now attributed to SAGE, having SAGE, you can see that it was about that's 11.4% reduction in people who are eating less meals, which is attributed to the existence of SAGE in those areas. You can move to the next one, which talks about the education and school attendance. You can see that in SAGE districts, there was about 22.14 percentage points because of the existence of SAGE, where in the non-SAGE, it was only a 7.54 percentage points. And the overall change, which is attributed to SAGE, in that is about 14.20%. That was a study which was done by a company from South Africa, and it has done this analysis for us. Impact of SAGE on employment, we can also see it in SAGE districts. You had like 18.8 percentage points, whereas in non-SAGE it was 12, and 6.04 percentage points. So those are attributed to the existence of what? Of SAGE. And those were districts. These people used the household survey data, and they were able to see districts which were comparable, that they're almost at the same level of development. And that analysis of that data was used. Poverty rates for all households by SAGE and non-SAGE districts also shows you there. That was in the UNHS 2016-2017. It shows that the rest of the country, poverty, for instance, in the purple line, that is 2009 to 2010, and then the brown one is 2016-2017. You can see how it was moving. In the rest of the country, poverty increased from 2012-2013 to 20% in 2016-2017. Well, in the SAGE districts, you can see it remained stable at 31%. At 31%. Well, in the rest of the country, it was rising. And if you look at the non-SAGE districts, poverty moved from 22% to 24%. So what is the magic that in these SAGE districts, it remained at 31%? It could also have gone much higher. And if, for your own information, SAGE districts, the first 15, we targeted the poorest districts per region. But at least the statistics don't tell lies. We were able to analyze the household survey, and that was the picture. That with SAGE on, people at least didn't fall in those households. Now the story is also shown for households which had older persons, ages 65 years and above. It is also there, almost the same story. You can see that as the poverty was increasing for the rest of the country from 17 to 21%, and for non-SAGE from 23 to 27. For the 15 SAGE districts, it was from 31 to 32% limited. And you can attribute that difference to the existence of SAGE in this in these districts. So other impacts, which I think I have already tried to look, you can see some of those images. I think some of you have even been there. People have the cows, they have the goats, the pigs, and they have done that, and they are telling you they are able to multiply that little income we give them. And I think honorable members here, some of them can see their faces here. This is an area which happened in Chankwanzi, where this older man, who was about 80 something by then, was pointing to a new roof. And you can see on the side, oh, you have not moved. Yes, that's the picture. You can see on the side the former shelter this person had, but with the SAGE, they had been able to put up this roof. They had been able to put up that. And the honorable members, Honorable Ndezi is there, you can see. I think Honorable Jacob was also around there. You can see yourself, but that was evidence that this is what the SAGE can do from 25,000 shillings per month. But the people are able to transform their lives. Now, allow me to move to the key program challenges. One, the Honorable Chairperson had already mentioned, we have issues of areas. In 2020/2021, we accumulated areas of about 36.08 billion for about 270,000 beneficiaries. We couldn't pay that because the money we had in the budget was small. By then, our budget was 62.88 billion, and the 62.88 billion was only meant to cover 6 months. Of course, government had promised that we would, in the subsequent year, when we have brought on board all the older persons, they would give us the right amount which was required. By then, we required around 120 billion. But the budget unfortunately remained on 62.8. That's why we ended up having that shortfall. The other balance was covered by donors, but that one has been carried over. What are the implications? That was money accumulated in 2020, 2021. Now we are in 2021, 2022. So when we go for payment, the older persons have already recorded in their mind that they still had money which is not yet paid. So we had come up with a proposal to our colleagues in finance that possibly we use the current budget, clear that backlog. Then if there is a shortfall, that's what we carry forward. Maybe it could be covered in the supplementary, and then we address. But finance thought, no, let us first keep that, and it should be reflected in the areas for the next budget. But I think, as the chairperson was mentioning, unfortunately, in the recent budget called circular, finance seems to have forgotten again to put those domestic areas. And I think that's one area we need support to make sure that that money is either reflected in the areas or supplementary is provided now and we cover them. Inadequate budget provision for next financial year. Yes, we require 146.7 billion, but we have in the budget now 120.7 billion, and we shall have that shortfall next financial year. So we need that covered as government finalizes the budget so that we can run this program efficiently and effectively. The national ID related exclusions have also been an issue. As we went down to roll out, now the NIRA National Identity Card has been a key targeting tool. For older persons, how do we identify them now who are 8 and above? We share the NIRA gives us their database. So we are able to enter that in our MIS, then we can process all the older persons who are registered with NIRA and know what age they are. Unfortunately, when we reached the ground, we found some older persons who never had a national ID. And some of them are were already beneficiaries, I have already mentioned. In the 15 pilot districts, they were already beneficiaries. But now when NIRA came, some of them didn't register. And now it becomes a requirement because even to open a bank account in Uganda, you need to have a national ID. So that's what is happening. But good enough, we are working now with NIRA to have the 11,000 registered. That process, as I talk, it is already going on in the districts. We are working with NIRA to do that. But the other major, bigger complication we have, there are 43,559 older persons who are claiming, some of them it is right, that they are above 85, above 80, but then their national IDs which they hold, some of them can tell you I'm 55. So when these people came to register, I think the first time, some of them can tell you, I don't know when I was born. Yeah, some were frank. I think when they told these people, I don't know when I was born. So the person who was registering put for them a date. By then stage, maybe I don't know, they had not yet been targeted for in their areas. There was no, stage was not in the vicinity. So they gave any age to this person. So that's why now it comes. You find, unfortunately, we have seen cases where the daughter or son is already on the stage, where the mother is not on the stage. So that's good evidence which is emerging, but it is a challenge we have, and we are told this is one of the most complicated cases because even NIRA itself says they don't have a right to change this. You have to go through a process. You have to go to register your, is it affidavit? Our lawyer here will explain. You have to swear somewhere and then it has to be registered. There is a fee you pay for that. So even changing, you need to pay money to NIRA to change, which these people may not readily have. But we are trying to think through it. We are engaging with NIRA and we are discussing, maybe we shall have to find a new mechanism where we can help these people, so long as maybe an appeals committee has to be sent up the lower level to vet these people. Once disagreed, good enough, they already have a national ID. Opening an account will not be a problem for them, but we have to agree maybe within government, maybe parliament will also support us in this, and we see what can we adopt so that these older persons are helped to access that money. We have also had an incomplete migration, and this has generated some complaints in some areas because we are moving from post-bank to centenary, and the challenge of having a national ID caught some of our beneficiaries in that. So those are still waiting. We have them in our payroll because they are our beneficiaries, but money can't be transferred to their accounts. So we are working with the NIRA to at least make sure that those are addressed. Pressure to lower age, as we have been going out, there are so many memoranda which have been collected in the various pay points from districts themselves, saying 80 seems to be a bit high. There are very many older, vulnerable persons who are even 70, even 65. So what is government going to do on that? So there has been that pressure, and discussions have been done that possibly we may need to lower the age. On our side, we have already done some paper of cabinet, which is before the cabinet secretariat for review, before we ask finance for a certificate to present that paper. We have had also the value, which I think had been talked of, it has been 25 for almost the last 7 years. There is need to increase it a little bit to cater for inflation. I see last time I was told soap is now 8,000 on the market. Yet this is one of the key services I've been giving. Sugar has also been rising a little bit. So we need to think of the value amidst all the other competing priorities of government. This year, I've already mentioned, support of development partners will go away. So that's the reason why we needed a full budget, because there are other costs which have to be met, the fuel, the salaries, to make sure that government fully. But if we get the total 146.7 billion, it should be able to cover all without the development partner support. By the way, development partners stopped paying grants in March of last year. So it has been government now taking on all of that. So what SPM is doing to address, I think some of them have already been mentioning. We have already engaged with finance, but we have not yet got results in terms of the areas. We are currently working with NIRA. I've talked of that. Progress is being made in registering those older persons who didn't register for the national ID before. We have also prepared the cabinet paper, which I've already talked about, to lower age. And we had requested the Ministry of Finance to allow a waiver for those beneficiaries who are already on the program in Postbank, so that we can, Centenary Bank can open for them account without that national ID as we process the national ID. But unfortunately, the Minister of Finance was opted, and they said, no, let us not do that, as in, it's a mistake. Let them first get the national ID. So that's where we are. And the options for lowering, I think I mentioned that we are doing that cabinet paper, but those are the calculations which have been done. If we are to lower from 80 to 75, for instance, you would need about you need 192 billion. We already have the 120.7, so the shortfall would be about 71 billion. If you are going to 70 years, you will need an additional 158 billion. And you'd reach a big number of about at least 764,000 from the current target of about 350. So that's the picture. I mentioned of the remedial registration of NIRA, which is currently happening. Those are the pictures. The evidence is there. I think this was Namutumba district. The registration, even in other districts, 100 districts so far, is happening. Our request for support from these members, our honorable members of parliament, is that we really need support in engaging to make sure that at least we clear these areas, either through a supplementary, if it is a domestic area, let it be reflected at least in the budget. We shall be sure that next financial year, which is just June, we should get money and pay these older people. We also need to commit for that shortfall in the next budget of 27 billion. If it can be supported to have that, the better. Especially given that the donors who have been with us are pulling out, so we shall have issues of operational funds where they have been now supporting us. We have also to count on you for support in lowering the age. At least there has been a talk that if we can lower to 75 in the next year, that would be very good for our older persons. Also pushing Bank of Uganda, but I think finance has stood on that way. I think but if there was a way, that would also be good, that we allow those older persons under Post Bank not to keep looking at the money which they can't access. They know they have money, but they can't access it because they can't open a bank account. If we could be given support in that, Bank of Uganda could allow Centenary Bank to open those accounts. Opportunities which are available, Honorable Chairperson mentioned many, that SAGE at pay points are a very good area for marketing and promoting many other development services. That has been happening. We have tested it in some areas. Like in Karamoja, we are able to do eye care services. We partnered with site savers, and they were coming in. Even people go to operations, their eyes. Find somebody is blind, but just an operation and the person gets their sight again. So we have those experiences which have happened. But of course, that was an NGO which had some support. But we have been talking to other departments like Ministry of Health. I think there is room for them taking advantage of that. Government has launched also the parish development model. We see that as an opportunity for us. You have seen these older persons who are trying to invest and do everything. It means they can also get a benefit from the other group. That's an opportunity for them. But also, I think there will be more increased extension services. We have visited some older person, they have those cows, but how do they get the treatment? Do they get, so there are other services they could also get out of that. We have also seen benefits that older persons receive from other programs like PDM, to address vulnerability. Yes, that's okay. Data and information is one key aspect of the parish development model. That has been one of our challenges. Good enough, the parish chiefs, as I told you, they are very key. And that will be the center of the parish development model. They will be keeping an information management system. So we count on that if that system gets strengthened, meaning the parish chief will have transport, it will be easier for them to move. They will have some operational resource. So we believe they will also give more services to our older persons. Well, because as of we talk now, we have been able to provide for them some token of transport, airtime in case they have to communicate. But we believe they will help us in the area of change management, especially related to death. When people die, how do we get reports? And the parish chiefs now are going to help us in that. Other programs like the child sensitive social protection are also helping us to strengthen systems. So that is a regional program in West Nile, but we count on that to strengthen our systems at that lower level. Thank you very much. I will stop it at this. I think that's enough material for engagement and discussion. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen Kasteja, for a very elaborate presentation. I know you're already itching to ask him questions, but I want him to clarify one thing. During the discussion for the National Budget Framework paper, the one that was recently passed by Parliament, the Budget Committee made quite a number of recommendations and reallocations. If I read the report very well, yes, if I read the report very well, those recommendations were adopted by the Budget Committee and passed by the House. I want to know from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development whether the recently released budget call circular addresses some of the things that we are talking about.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, I think I had already mentioned that, yes, you have even recommended that a supplementary should be provided to cater for those areas. You recommended that even lowering age should be considered, but unfortunately, as we talk,
and increasing money.
Yeah, the money has not yet been, even the increase of our budget by that 27 billion has not been done. So I think that's the status quo. So it is some areas still on table for.
There's actually even no mention of the domestic areas anymore, when there was such mention in the BFP. So as if they have now taken away the.
Okay, so that's the state of affairs as it is. I want somebody to help me with the microphone and the sanitizer, please. And Honorable Sarah Opendi will go first.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, the presenter, for giving us this up-to-date information regarding the SAGE. My apology, I have a committee that is handling my petition, and therefore I may run out in a minute from now. However, Chair, I think some of the things being requested here have already been, a decision has already been made. I recall at cabinet level, we had already agreed that we should move the age from 80 to 70 because there are not so many people who really reach 80 years in our communities. And when you look even at these lists, you'll find that in certain districts are you see that the money is being sent to these districts is quite low. And the reason is because there are very few people who actually get to the age of 80. Although we can actually go beyond that age if we really live our lives in the ways that we're supposed to live them. Why should the Europeans live beyond 100 years? And Africans, with all this good weather, with all this fertile soil, cannot go beyond 80 years. So I think that decision had already been made. Maybe what the Ministry of Gender needs to do is to push this to cabinet so that there is a policy change, and then we can be able to move on. Colleagues, I want to request you. This decision to support older persons with this small grant was already made. And therefore, we cannot accept or see the Ministry of Finance negating on this noble cause. We are the ones that appropriate monies. And it hurts me when I sometimes see us just simply passing budgets, even in areas that are not supposed to be, they are not a priority. I have seen suggestions to buy cars, escort cars, I don't know cars for who. Is this necessary? Fleet of vehicles. Creating conflicts in communities. You can now see how torn the cultural institutions are because of these small monies that the government has put. And to me, I think we need to stand firm and say no. Before monies are available for these older persons, we should not create other, expenditure lines.
Yes.
We have seen even, anyway. Sometimes I speak,
Yes.
But let me say
You're
it.
paid for that.
Do we need all these presidential advisors? Do we need them?
Who end up being advised?
You have a minister for youth affairs, you have a minister for works, you have a minister for lands, housing and urban development. You have all these ministers, 81. Then you have all these presidential advisors in the same sectors. When do these people really advise the president? Why do we need all these expenditure lines? So, honorable colleagues, for me, these older persons have lived their lives. Some of them cannot do much now. But from what from this presentation, you can see that just 25,000 has transformed the lives of these older persons. How I wish we could decrease this to 30,000. I would be happy. But you imagine, you bring one presidential advisor who will never advise the president, is going to earn 15 million plus, is going to get a vehicle and fuel. And at the end of the day, how much would we have paid these older persons? How many older persons would have benefited from that money? So I think, and those members of parliament who are holding the position of presidential advisors and have not resigned, I'm putting them on notice. They should resign and relinquish one position. You can't be a presidential advisor and you're a member of parliament at the same time. Yes, please check. So, honorable colleagues, let us stand and support SAGE. Let us support our grandfathers to live a meaningful life and leave this earth when they are smiling, not grumbling. I want to ask a question. We know the big districts in Uganda. But when I see here Yumbe, Zombo earning 25 billion, Yumbe earning 18 billion, are there so many old people in these districts? I hope we are not taking care of refugees. Yes, I am just asking. I hope we are not taking care of refugees as older persons of Uganda. I just need that clarification. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I answer? Because
thank you, Sarah, for asking very pertinent question and making it very categorical that we should not be accepting not to support our older persons, especially through the budget process. You wanted to say something?
No, since she's leaving, we can give her.
Okay, I think since you say you want to step out a little bit, he says he needs to answer your question straight away, and you can proceed.
Yes, Honorable Sarah is right that Yumbe and Zombo seem to have higher numbers. The reason is that those districts were among the pilot, the 15 pilots. They have been on this program for the last 10 years, so they have earned that money over a long period of time. But also they had bigger numbers because they had the advantage of 65 years and above. So yeah, when they came, people were targeting 65 years and above. So they had over 10,000 people in their areas.
Okay, so I think the clarity is that when the decision was made to roll SAGE to the whole country, those who were already on the program were maintained. And that gave an advantage to those who had participated in the pilot program. So I want the microphone to come in front. I want...
there was one...
let's have, I want to see the numbers again. Okay, let's have him, then we have her, and then before we go to Oprot. Oprot will be the fourth. So, okay.
Thank you very much for the information. This information is so pertinent, it's so important at times such as this to bring us up to speed at a time when we are talking about social protection, especially the elderly, where we all belong and where at a certain time we are all candidates. It comes at a time, yesterday I was actually supposed to be here to come to Kampala, but I couldn't because I had a meeting with all the persons, led by my own father, who is 88. And there were 25 of them in my own compound, making all complaints about all the issues that you've raised. And I want to assure you, I did not have answers. But tomorrow, over the weekend, I am going back with answers, and at least with some words of comfort. So I am appreciating the information that we have, that has come our path, that brings us up to speed on this matter. issues of cabinet and the lowering of the age, that one has already been spoken. I don't want to go back really to that. But the issue that was also very important was the issue of migration from Post Bank to Centenary, and that one has really locked out many people. But we have been receiving, and now we cannot. And that thing is being weighted just like you people, where you just need that information. And these guys are definitely not getting. I don't know what can be done to speed up that migration so that it is sorted out, because it is so pertinent that it needs to be sorted. You know, when you get used to something, like however small it has been, it should not be tampered with. Secondly, I would definitely agree that this money is stepped up. It cannot remain at that level without putting account into issues of inflation. For sure, we know what 25,000 means today. We cannot keep at that. It should be stepped up, and if it means coming up and making chairperson organize us for another forum so that we discuss in detail those things and we map a way forward. This may not be a place to make decisions, but we need to set aside and move away how we can move into this matter. I think the other things have already been talked about. I will settle my case at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable. Somebody helping with the microphone. I had identified the first four, and we can have some tea as well. You can walk quietly, get your cup of tea, and come after the first, the four that we, now there are three more. Then we, so she was the next. She was the next, then him, then Honorable Porot, and then Honorable, and then, yes.
She has given.
He's going to speak after her.
Yes, she has
Honorable
given me because-
Honorable Babadi will hold on a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the presenter, Mr. Kasaija, for this wonderful presentation. Once again, my name is Koluo Joseph Andrew. I represent the people of Toroma County, Katakwi District, which was one of the first beneficiaries of SAGE. I want first of all to thank the government for bringing up this program. For sure, when this program started in my place, a majority of the elderly persons were able to survive. Right now, as I speak, you will find that the situation is a bit okay, but before that, more than 5-6 people were dying per day, the elderly persons. The challenges, you have alluded to some. I want also to add my voice. One, the delays. You will find that these elderly people spend even 6 months without getting the money. Please try to sort out this. Then two, I concur with my colleagues. The age bracket 80 is too high. If you come to my place, you will find that a person of even 55 years is walking on using a support of a stick. So I think we should try to reduce this age bracket to 70 so that we try to help these elderly people. Thirdly, migration, as my colleague has mentioned, it is one of the worst in my place. Centenary Bank is found in Soroti. Transport from Toroma to Soroti, one way, is 15,000. Now it becomes really a very big challenge. So according to me, maybe if we want to these elderly people to get assistance, this should be sorted out, and this banks taking over should come downwards, maybe up to the sub-county, even up to the village to register this one. elderly people, because now they are unable to what? To walk. Then finally, the national ID is a very big problem. I request that NERA, the ministry to sort out this with NERA, because a slight change, even the spelling of the name, is a very big problem. I hear the registration for you to register to get a national ID, you have to come to Kampala, which is very, very expensive for you to what? To get the national ID. And colleagues, I think this is the right time for us to make sure that we appropriate the budget so that this program is kept on. If we do not follow this, a curse from these elderly people is very, very bad for us, and we shall end up perishing before them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you very much remember the concerns that you raised as the chairperson of gender when you came to the budget committee. And many of the chairperson realized that there are so many unfunded programs within the budget. But as the committee, we agreed that the fact that there is going to be a consolidation of other wealth programs, let us, at least the SAGE and the money for the disabled, let us provide those funds. Actually, I should say, from the budget called Circular 2, the budget committee was very disappointed when they collected the 1.58 trillion in addition, because now it was 43 trillion, now it is 45. From the 1.58 that was raised, priority was given to the parish development model, enhancement of studies for scientists, indexation of pensions, ex gratia, and some other payments to other things. So I think before even we think about increasing the money, let's negotiate for having the areas submitted within the supplementary. Before you think of having money, having the money increase, that is one. Chair, we should negotiate, and I know the budget committee is in support of that. We should pay the areas within the supplementary budget. Two, we should also negotiate more to have the SAGE and the money for the disabled maintained. The fact that they were doing that with the WEP, the youth livelihood, I think it's a better position for us to have these negotiated. So I think we should pay much attention on having this money in the next year's financial budget and the money in the supplementary budget before we go in for negotiations of further increment. Thank you.
Honorable, is it Fred Opolot? I think I heard your name. Then we have Honorable Kabusu next. And
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to concur with some of my colleagues who have made emphasis that the infrastructure for the distribution of these monies should be really greatly improved. Secondly, a sustainability issue. Because right now we are talking about the shortage of financing in the current, that is the current 80-year-olds that is being distributed to. At the same time, we are propagating for the reduction of the age for the beneficiaries. How is this going to, and of course you've showed us the financial implications. How are we going to manage? Don't you think that it's actually prudent that we first and foremost sustain the distribution to the 80-year-olds before then, before we get that confidence to then move to the 75-year-olds? Secondly, or thirdly, the development partners are leaving in June. We're only 2 months away from June. How confident are we? Maybe colleagues from the gender committee are fully aware or but we need that confidence. I mean, they're pulling away. Is government really prepared? to sustain the payment of these 80 euros. Thank you.
Madam Chairperson, thank you, the presenter. My name is Kabusu Moses. Madam Chairperson, my concern relates to the figures here. Madam Chairperson, I'm raising a sectarian concern. There are fewer disbursements of money in Buganda region as opposed to other regions. And my further concern goes to the island districts of Manayingo, Buvuma, and Kalangala. Madam Chairperson, you have traveled to Kalangala and you see how unimaginable it is to connect to inter-island connectivity. When the figures they give here, that in the whole Kalangala district, there are only 56 and 77, 133 beneficiaries. Madam Chairperson, whenever we go to those people, we find old people in the islands and they ask us why they are not enrolled on the SAGE program. So we want to ask the Ministry of Gender and the presenter here to carry out more research and find out why are most of our people in Buganda here not enrolled on this program. I'm not saying they are segregated, but when these figures are considered as if they are the truthful basic figures, our people in Buganda here who are old and helpless, equally hopeless. If you see the younger people as hopeless they are, then the older people down there in the villages are worse off, Madam Chairperson. Lastly, Madam Chairperson, possibly some of you watched NTV News yesterday evening. I watched a news item relating to health insurance, and the case study was in Chigezi. Madam Chairperson, I keenly watched it and admired if this committee and all the stakeholders here would advocate at least a start of such a thing in our constituencies or in our districts where older persons can access medical treatment. Madam Chairperson, I learned from that news item that they pay 54,000 shillings per annum and people walk to the health center in Chigezi and get treatment. When this SAGE money delays to come, at least these older people can walk, can be carried on bicycles or on charge and be taken to get treatment. We can do concurrent advocate for SAGE as well as this other health insurance something or a program like that. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm a member of the committee where Honorable Sarah is a petitioner in a petition we are handling. If I take a French leave, Madam Chairperson, bear with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But Honorable Kabusu, I think what you will have to understand is that Buganda and Kampala mostly had more numbers of older persons pensionable than the other regions. And so most of those who would benefit in SAGE are pensionable, and SAGE is exclusive of the pensionable. So that gives you that whether advantage or I don't know, but that brings down the numbers because there are more who are pensionable than in the other regions.
Thank you so much, the presenter and my colleagues. My name once again is Agasha Juliet Bashisha. I represent the people of Mitoma district. My contribution on this is the observation I've got in my constituency, whereby after this SAGE money, some of us, the sons and daughters, have completely abandoned our responsibility. We think that our fathers and maybe grandfathers are on the payroll, and we completely don't even bother to check whether the money is coming or not. I want to appreciate the fact that we need social care in even identifying the priorities our old persons want. You find like in our place, food is not a very big problem, but you find someone sleeping very badly, no beddings, even the hygiene completely down. So I request for more sensitization on the caretakers or caregivers of these older persons. Where you find someone is able to look after the father, they have abandoned. And where you find someone is not able to look after the father, they encroach on that pay and they take it. So we need more sensitization to the people who are close to those older persons so that they can at least benefit. And maybe another point is about negotiations to lower the age. I request that we don't be very ambitious to go to 60. Let us start with 75. Then next time we move maybe to 70. The more we become very ambitious, they will not even help us. They will refuse everything. So let us negotiate for 75 for a start. So that the next time, after getting that one, then we go for 70. Then we get that one and then go for 60. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This honorable member had risen his hand earlier, but
Honorable Chair, I'm a chair of a committee
maybe after Joe.
and I have to go for that committee. Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. I'm very glad because SAGE began in Chankwanzi district and the livelihood of the people changed greatly. But again, when it reached the COVID time, most of those old people were affected highly. What I can urge members is that one, when the National Health Insurance is brought to the floor of Parliament by Health Committee, support it wholeheartedly so that we can save our people. Because when people go to 80 years, the non-economical diseases come on them greatly and they are affected. So this money that we are giving them cannot even save them. With the cancers, with hypertension, with the diabetes, you cannot do anything with this money. So we need, first of all, to look into our budgeting process because there is where we put money and it is not beneficial. I'm sorry to say, we have seen Bonabagagawale, we have seen wealth creation? That one, we have seen NADS, we have seen everything. They are taking a lot of money. I cannot talk about parish model because I haven't seen, but the Myoga issue. So if we can lower the age, if we come to 70 or 65, we shall help our people. They are our people. Mark you. We have the Bazilis in these villages and they are dying miserably. But if you can get that money that is not put to use correctly and we put to this stage, then it might be effective. One talked about the issue of Bushenyi, where people are contributing for community health insurance. But up to now, these people are working without any guiding, mechanisms. No district ordinances that were passed because the Solicitor General told them, please wait, the National Health Insurance is coming. That was 2017. But up to now, there's nothing that has come out. So I think we should drum high so that we can get these services nearer. But the most important thing is to drum for National Health Insurance. That's what I can urge you to support us as a health committee to make sure that it comes to our country and we help our old people. Otherwise, thank you for this and thank you. But my worries is the areas that we have. Are we going to get the arrears? Because our people are asking us, where is the money? Where is the money? If we cannot get the arrears, now why should we increase anyway? If we cannot get these arrears, why should we lower the age anyway? Those are the questions to ask ourselves. But are we budgeting rightly as parliament, as members of parliament?
That's the thing. That's the thing.
Not our government. It is we.
That's the question.
Because we prioritize. You get it? We get budgets, but we can say this one shouldn't go this way, this one can go to this side. We divert these budgets. We have seen. One time I diverted 1 billion from Mulago Hospital to Chirudu. It was just taken there illegally so that people can eat it. But I said, this money cannot be utilized well. Let it go to Chirudu, where bans can be, catered. So it is us on one hand, but again, it is on the cabinet. Is it cabinet? Yes, cabinet. So I think we should have that working relationship, good working relationship with the cabinet so that our messages can be entered into the system and we go by it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable. Can you please first give this Honorable a reason here?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Most of the things which I had wanted to highlight actually have been hinted on, but basically, I was wondering under the Ministry of Gender why the old people can take 6 months and they are not paid, and then even in the budget you forget them. Doesn't it mean, or isn't it a pointer that the program is most likely to fail? Because much as we are talking about increasing, if the budget is for the Ministry of Gender is now constrained, I'm wondering which priorities you are trying to handle, which is forgetting a full sector. It means even your salary may not be paid for a certain quarter or for a certain period of time, because this is a government program which was initiated by His Excellency. But in case if it is having challenges of finance, is it because in your challenges you have not given us reasons why money has not been allocated to pay the old persons? Is it because of the budget cuts? And if there's a budget cut, it should cut across all sectors, but it should not only affect one sector. So in case if this money is not paid to the old people, then it means that the program is becoming irrelevant. It should be reviewed and it should be revised, and so that we can be in a position to move well. Because right now we cannot go and explain to those old people, they need a lot of assistance. I know there are many people who are advocating, even me myself, I advocate that we lower the age, because at 80 a person cannot do business. Because I've tried to see, you have said what is the relationship of the parish development model, the SAGE program. A person at 80 years cannot do business, he's energyless. But when you lower the age to 65, people of 65, 70 years can do business. And therefore, the program, the parish development model can become irrelevant to the SAGE program at the moment, because they are not able to do a match. There are people who have retired, they are waiting for, for departure. But the most important issue is on issues of health insurance. I was here the other day with the pensioners in the parliamentary, it was a parliamentary pension scheme. And very many of them have grown old, and they were saying, but why should you pay us very little money, and we don't have accessibility to insurance, things like that. And they had proposed to bring a bill in Parliament so that we can be in a position to pass an insurance cover for the people, members of Parliament who are on pension. This applies to these old. We need to push this country ahead by advocating to have insurance for our people. If we have failed to pass a bill, let me say to pass a law to cover all of us, but let it cover a certain section of those vulnerable people, especially the old people. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. There are some hands down.
Thank you very much. our chair, and the Minister of Gender, especially the discussant, for the elaborate discussion. I want to thank Government of Uganda for coming up with this initiative, for creating shade for our senior citizens. And particularly, I also want to thank the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection for creating us this platform for discussing these important issues concerning our older persons. Chair, as we encounter and interface with these older persons in our communities, they have raised pertinent questions, and I felt this is the right opportunity for me to seek for clarity from Minister of Gender and my colleagues who might have got a better knowledge concerning the issue of beneficiaries of this very program. Older persons have raised issues that deleting their names has become at a high rate. You go to access your benefit only to find that your name has disappeared and they don't know why. So they really want to know as to why such instances are happening. And they're saying that this worries them so much that the program may only be for formality, but not helpful to them if not well evaluated. Another pertinent issue is that the alternatives of the deceased elders were told to fill forms for their families to access the benefit. And this has never been effective. And they will want to know if such a procedure really exists or it is not there for their own flexibility. Chair, the issue of health has been raised by my colleagues. It's a very serious issue among the older persons. They are really saying that their health conditions are very alarming. If we, part of the government, can really consider them and see if the common acute illness that they suffer from can be rescued by government, as colleagues had raised. Thank you so much. Those were the concerns.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Yeah, I was hesitant to give to the members of the executive yet. So, Honorable Margaret and Kalulu, I'm saving you for later. Maybe Dr. Florence, I can see her hand.
Thanks, Chair. Dr. Sime Florence Akiki, Woman MP, Masini District. I have something to tell my people. I've seen the figure that is attached to Masindi. My question is that we are discussing a number of issues touching the financial implication. Minister of Gender, recently His Excellency announced the cultural leaders' budget to be included. We need to know, out of the 43 trillion that the government of Uganda is expecting to collect, most of the ministries' budgets have been cut. And even what you have now may not take care of all these other demands. Don't you think it's right and just that we put the money of the areas? I don't know whether that one is included in the current budget. I need some guidance. Do the areas appear in the current budget? We are now in the budget framework. I mean, discussing the budget. We are expecting ministerial policy statements. Are these things are going to appear in those statements? Are the areas going to also to appear? So I'm of the view that we first clear the debt. First, understand that the donors are pulling out in June. The budgets are being cut across the board in all ministries. And then in that ministerial statement, which we are eagerly waiting for, let the issue of areas come out clearly, and see whether actually the ministry can accommodate more expenses amidst the budget cuts, because we might just be dreaming, hoping, and even the press is here. We think that we're actually taking care of our old persons. But let us be sincere to ourselves that things are not okay. I think we should only discuss the issue of areas, and when the economy improves, now with Ukraine and Russia fighting, things are going to change. So I rest my case, but let us look at the areas first before new demands. For me, I can see the budget and all the countries going into a crisis, and yet we are demanding for more and more. I rest my case, Madam Chair.
Yes, Honorable. So now I can have Honorable Milton and Honorable Babadiri.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, this is just a reminder to colleagues. Some of us who are returnees and the new members, I just want to remind ourselves that when we are campaigning, most of you and most of us used to assure the older persons that we are going to make history, we are going to make news. Especially those of us who are in the 9th Parliament, where this program started. You remember it started at 65. When the 10th Parliament increased to 80, those of us who are in the corridors waiting, we were riding on that. You know, it's the 10th Parliament that did this. Give us chance to go and reverse or address the trend. So I want to remind all members here present that the clock has begun counting. Let's stand firm as far as age reduction or revisiting is concerned. Even if we achieved from 80 to 70, let's not overbargain to go back to 65. No, it could be a little ambitious. 70 would be moderate and reasonable. So I'm just lobbying all of you that let's remember the commitment we made to the older persons when we were campaigning. Madam Chair, there's maybe a clarification from Mr. Kasaija. When he was giving the cost centers where older persons have been mainly spending their money, there is food, medical, but alcohol is also captured. According to African culture, when there is something like income enhancement, people normally look at increasing the number of burdens or baggage they carry. Could it be under others that when somebody gets this money, he or she considers adding another burden in terms of a spouse or so? Could it be in others? Maybe you could shed light along this line. I thank you.
Okay. The age is prohibitive though. 80 years, when you add baggage, then you are in the departures lounge.
Thank you, neighbor. You're a good neighbor. Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to thank our presenter for enlightening us. For some of us, it's just reminding us of what has happened. And for the newcomers, it's to learn more about SAGE. It is very important to have information so that you have if it's data and information to argue your issue. So thank you very much, presenter. Now my concern is this SAGE program, let us generally for the social protection. It is well conceived. It is very important. And we have seen the importance of this SAGE. We are saying we cannot reverse. We must go forward. We must see that, if possible, all the persons must get this money. I've seen in my area when I was representing them, you find a person of 70 not getting the money, and yet the one of 65 is getting. I say, what is logic? Why are you not giving us? So we know the problems of money. But let us insist that we reduce the age to 70 so that we can convince our people that we are coming gradually. We shall be able to increase later. Sarah mentioned a lot of money being wasted. If we really budget properly, we can cater for our people, the disabled, the older persons. Then secondly, we talked of the arrears. Said, was it how many? 88 months arrears. I would like to know whether currently are the older persons receiving the money? Does it mean we are adding now more months to what they have? So that at the end of the day, instead of having 80 months, we shall have 14 months? I would like this clarification. Because we are now adding more areas and it will be very difficult to clear it. Then the donors, they said they are stopping. What plans does the government have to ensure that we continue this SAGE program, which has started? It's 10 years down the road, and we told our donors that we shall be able to take over the payment. Now the time has come. What is government telling us? How much have we budgeted to see that we take over this SAGE? A chairperson, I'd like to think of the wider area of social protection. We have talked of funds for persons with disability, and this money is given to groups, but there are people who are really battle off, bedridden, they can't do anything. They are not getting this money. I understand it is there in the program. Have we done any budgeting so that the disabled persons get their share? Because they are equally as badly as the older persons. Then also the issue of social, let us say, health insurance. Health insurance is very important. We have seen that 20,000 shillings, 25 cannot even cater for an injection of some drugs for older persons. Let us emphasize the issue of health insurance so that this money will be used for other things rather than health insurance. Then for members of parliament, for you are sitting, remember when you're out of parliament, there is no health insurance. So we need to fight for health insurance for ex-members of parliament so that the little pension you get is for other things. So health insurance is very important. Thank you very much.
Great. I want to thank the members who joined in. And honorable members, maybe before I call Mr. Kasaija to give his responses, I would like to tell you that if you have to lobby, you don't have to even sympathize with the person from whom you are lobbying, unless you are not a lobbyist. You can't be a lobbyist and then you start behaving like a cat. We are claiming a right and not a favor. You are aware that 17 million per parish was sent to the district accounts for parish development model without guidelines, and cows are only sitting with it on accounts. Why didn't it pay for the older persons? What was the rush for sending 17 million for each parish for PDM without guidelines, and it is not being spent, and here older persons are crying? Why should we sympathize with this government? Yes. You will see a supplementary budget, even this week, even next week. People are seeking for money to eat and crash, and we are here trying to think that older persons are not a priority. Who told you that? Some of us are going to be very sensational on this. We are claiming a right and not a favor. We need money for areas in this financial year, not as domestic areas. So, honorable members of parliament, I'm pleading with you that in case a supplementary budget appears in this house before the financial year ends, let us stampede it until money for SAGE is in that supplementary. I'm pleading with you on this. And then in the next financial year, we need a reduction of age. We can accommodate 75. Let us raise to the money to 30,000 at least. But we must be seen to do something to these older persons. So, honorable members, whoever thinks we are asking for too much, we are now sympathizing with eaters so that they can eat and then the older persons die in oblivion. I think, honorable members, we need to get away from that. We want this money. We want the money for areas, and then in the next financial year, we want the money to reduce the age. We want the money to increase the grant, and also this transition must be addressed. When the older persons were transited from Post Bank to Centenary Bank, it became a disaster. Very many older persons were lost along the way. If it is the issue of national IDs, it is not their fault. It is the fault of NIRA, and government should take up this. Let the IDs be thrown out of the matter of these older persons receiving their money until NIRA sorts itself out, or else we should not even give NIRA any more budget until they sort the issue of IDs. We are not going to pamper them. So, honorable members, for me, that's how I advocate. And I'm only orienting you into this kind of aggressive advocacy. You are very well aware that this is not a constitutional committee of the parliament, but we are a pressure group. According to the Commonwealth standards, we are a pressure group. We want to see the pressure. So we are not going to talk like, I know. So please bear with me. We are a pressure group, I would like to remind you. And so we need to exert pressure, put government to task to do and respect their obligations. Affirmative action is in our obligations. The national objectives and principles of the Constitution they put the government to task to care about the welfare of vulnerable persons. Then the NRM manifesto, His Excellency pledged that he would take care of the welfare of vulnerable persons. We have international obligations. The Livingstone Call to Action, 2006. We have the African Union Charter on older persons, 2008. So Uganda cannot afford to be out of place. We are obligated as member states. So, Mr. Kasaija, can you do the responses?
Chair, honorable members, they have noted all the questions, and I will try to answer some of them in group. One was the issue of migration from Post Bank to Centenary. What can be done? Somebody was wondering what can be done. And I think we have mentioned that this migration is being affected mainly by the issue of the national ID. And I also mentioned that we have tried to engage.
Okay, we talked about the issue of migration from Post Bank to Centenary, and I'm saying this is being driven, the challenge is being driven by national ID, lack of a national ID, because we already have all these people in our ministry payroll. The only issue is them lacking an account. And to have that account, we have to send them to Centenary, they open that account. They only lack a requirement of a national ID because Bank of Uganda has given that instruction that they need to have a national ID. They have to know the clients before they open. But on the other side, we have been engaging with NIRA, and we are working on that for some of those beneficiaries. When they turn up at the pay point, registration point, they will be registered by NIRA, and they are given the national ID. Their money is not lost since they're already on our payroll. The money is already there. It's only once the account is given, the money will be triggered and it goes into the account. But I agree with you that we needed to speed this up so that people don't die off when their money is already in the pipeline. There was an issue of relatedly, or in the migration, there was an issue of the distance. Honorable from Katakwi mentioned that people have to move from Katakwi to Sorot where the Centenary Bank is. But we have an arrangement that we have not changed, that people have to go to the bank to open. The bank will come. What happened in some of these areas, when Post Bank was doing their last round of payment, these older persons were supposed to have migrated at that pay point. And move on. But as we have already mentioned, some of them didn't have the what? The national ID, so they could not. The bank captured some of the information, but they have to wait until the national ID comes, and then they complete the system. But our practice has been the banks have to go to where the beneficiaries are. They don't have to move to Soroti and all other cities to be registered. They will find them where they are. We have also found that some of these older persons in actual sense registered, but they didn't go to pick their what? Their national ID. So NIRA is we are trying to check our lists and with NIRA and say, please check if these people already, their cards are there, because we have been told in some of the offices of NIRA, they already have several cards which are not what? Picked. So I think there we can work with NIRA to see if we have identified our people, we could carry the cards with us to some of those areas and see that they are distributed. The other area was delay in the payment, 6 months, 8 months. Yes, now this delay is forced on us. For this financial year, we already have all the money. Government has given us the cash. Because even in the first quarter, we had negotiated for an additional 30 billion to try and cover off some of those areas. It's only when we reached to pay, we went to consult finance, because the auditors are recommended to consult finance, because you are using money of this current financial year to pay areas of last year. That's when we got that snag, finance saying, no, you can't. This has to be an area and has to be budgeted in the next year. Otherwise, they had even released the money to us. We have it on account, ready to pay these people. So it's not that the money is not around. It would have been. Then what it would mean, the supplementary, that money would be replaced as the financial year ends, as a supplementary to cover the gap. Because otherwise they had front-loaded the money for us to pay. So these delays of people not receiving the money, the money is available, but they can't receive it because of those other issues, challenges of migration. That's the only issue I can talk on that. Yes, is the supplementary now or next year? Has it been budgeted in the current, rather the areas, are they budgeted in the current year budget or they are for the next? So they can be either, they can be covered now as a supplementary or they can be carried into the next budget as areas. So it is how we prioritize it to address it. If you want to address it immediately, you can provide even a supplementary. If you want to be paid the other year, then it will have to be a domestic area. Sustainability issue. Yes, development partners are leaving in June. Yes, the Honorable Chairperson has emphasized that we really need to keep this program running. So we have to get the money for mainly operations, because the development partners have been covering now operations. The fuel, the facilitation of those people who organize the payments, the airtime, because people have to communicate with the parish chiefs when the payrolls have come, prepare the people, announcements, communication, all those things. So we have to take on that, and that issue can be addressed by making sure our budget for next year is topped up to make sure we cover all those costs. And that's the 27 billion which was topping up, which also includes some of the beneficiary payments, but it would also cover all those operational costs for us. So that's, I think, what we could say. Health insurance, I think you are spot on, because that's, I've already talked, the policy has already identified it to be a very good thing, and we have been working with the health. There was an initial challenge of how do you identify the indigents and what. We have done that study and given it to Ministry of Health, so they know now how they can identify them. So I think it's passing the law, and if the scheme can be established, it will be a benefit to our older persons. Yes, there was the issue of Kalangala, those islands, and Uganda getting very little money. Yes, and few beneficiaries. Honorable Chairperson has tried to add that, yes, many in these areas here could be pensioners. They are more elite and they have worked. But the other reason we can give, the money being low, is because most of these areas were doing much better economically. So the pilots, they have very few pilot districts. So they started
just recent in this rollout. They are not in those who started 10 years, other than Chankwanzi and the Kivoga. Those are the two which have been on. If you look at their figures, they earn a little bit more and the numbers are a bit higher. But for these other districts, Wakiso, they came just recent. So the money you see is small, and also they are only covering the 80 years and above, whereas the other districts had other ages, 65 and above. Yes, I think the other areas we have almost touched. Yes, why 6 months, no pay? I think I've already talked about that. It is because of those areas. That's why we could not pay. But for the current, the areas are being accumulated because of the lack of an account. The money is there, we have nowhere to channel it. Those are the current being generated areas, but their money is around what the account is covered. Unfortunately, if we don't open the account this year, it means then it becomes an area when we cross over to the next.
What stops you from opening an account?
If they don't have a national ID. So the process of NIRA providing the ID.
The national IDs.
Yes? Yeah, I think I will end it there. Yes, I would say that yes, we are almost there. I think if we give, yes, because the budget is already, we have some budget. That top up, yes, we are covering. Like now I can say 30% of the staff are paid by government. The donors pay 70% of the staff. So now the 70%, also I'm saying we need that other budget. The top, the fall on the shortfall in the budget. As they go out, we need that.
Administration will need a budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
It was in the budget of the ministry.
Yeah, but they have not.
But they have not.
The budget call cycle has not addressed it.
Not addressed it.
That's the gap.
Okay. I think there's one burning one. One burning one from Honorable Rachel. Yes? Just one last burning one.
Bob, can you be coming near?
I have possibly not gotten the name very well.
Can you attend to us online?
The hand which is up. Yes, forgive me, my sight. My sight is not very, cannot, yes.
Thank you. Sorry? Okay, thank you, Honorable. Thank you so much. I'm Judy Zaliek. I'm a member of parliament for Kwale District, and I'm also the chairperson of Lango Parliamentary Group. Ladies and gentlemen, I came a bit late, but this issue is very crucial. That's why I hurried coming here. I just want to know one thing, that I think the older persons are being tortured.
I think so.
They are being tortured, and I don't know, we are also part of the team that should really make corrective measures. Why the payment was shifted from Post Bank to Centenary Bank, and now most of the older persons are not able to even open their accounts. They are missing out their money, and money is getting accumulated every month, and they are not getting access to this money. I came late and I didn't know the reason why it was shifted. That is one. Two, is Centenary Bank doing the needful really for the older persons to make these people open accounts? Yes, if it is NIRA should also do their part. But the older persons should not keep on suffering. Let me give you just a brief
statement here. Because last month we had issues for livestock compensation in Northern Region. Then we brought this issue to the president because people were being tortured to get tax identification numbers. Tax. You know, these people who are claiming they are animals, they are real, some of them are very old and they don't know even what tax identification number is.
Even
Some of them have not gone to school. Persons with disabilities are there.
Yes.
You know, they don't even understand if it is written thin. They don't understand. So when we brought this issue to His Excellency, sincerely, the issue of tin was waived off completely. And it is almost the same as this one of NIRA. Let us look for an alternative solution to help our people who are old. Life expectancy now is only 64 years. The 64 years have to increase. So we don't want to see people die early when we are supposed to support them. We are supposed to really bring our brains together. So I'm just bringing it as a small experience, and I want us to work very hard. The issue of Parliament sitting and making budgets and appropriation, and also approving the supplementary budgets, we are ready for that. We are ready to stand on the floor of Parliament to make this money increase, to make the gaps filled, but also some people somewhere also have to play their what? Their roles. Centenary Bank, NIRA, let's bring this issue to the attention of the president. President is also an older person. So he should not be seeing older persons suffer like he's not there. He's also as old as them.
Yes.
Yes. So we have to really talk about this. Thank you.
So we are going to have, we have online audience. So we are going to stand by for the question from, yes. So, but Mr. Kasaija, you can answer that question as we bring somebody online.
The issue of why Kole, the honorable member from Kole has mentioned, why we change from Post Bank to Centenary Bank.
These payment service providers like Post Bank are procured and they have a contract. When the program started, we were using MTN, mobile money. Their term ended and they are procured through a competitive process. So we advertised, MTN, Post Bank came in, but Post Bank did better in terms of the offer they give, maybe to pay, they had a lower fee. So they were replaced and Post Bank came on. So Post Bank served their term, also their contract ended, then it was opened again. MTN also came back, Post Bank applied, and the Centenary applied. So again, it was a competitive process. So 5 years. So now that's what happened, and they lost out, then Centenary came. Now the issue, what we see here, Centenary would be delivering this service. Even Post Bank, even if we had them now, those accounts were not going to be standing because Post Bank was already pressing us because World Bank of Uganda was putting them on pressure. You can't have an account where a person doesn't have a national ID. They were going to be closed, those accounts, until we get a national ID. So the main issue, the focus now is to make sure we get, and that's what we are working on with in NIRA. But I think we welcome your proposal so that maybe if we can work on a waiver. We had attempted to do that. We wrote to Bank of Uganda, up to Minister of Finance. But even before Bank of Uganda replied, Finance replied on their behalf saying, no, people should have a national ID. And that's where we are.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Achan Jennifer, rather Judith is online. Judith, can you make your comment and ask a question?
Thank you, Chair, and
Are you there?
colleagues, members of Parliament.
So please unmute
Yes.
and
Are you
ask
getting
your
me?
question straight away.
I'm already unmuted. Hello?
Yes, she's on. Yes, we can hear you. Can you ask your question?
Thank you so much. I would like to interest the the ministry and then the payment agents. For now, I'm told, I'm hearing we have Centenary Bank. Can we have a product which is developed by the bank, which is favorable for our older persons? Honestly speaking, I always see how these people go. They are waiting for payments. They are very hungry. The transport cost is too much. Yes, they have reduced to some extent by putting it like annual payment. Say annual, putting it like quarterly payment. But still, once they are going there to get those money, they have to sit there for long, waiting for the long queue and for long hours. You know, it's quite cumbersome. It is hectic. So I would like to interest the bank to think of a product within the bank that suits our older person, that easily can be accessed by the older persons. Because honestly speaking, I don't see them continue like that for long. As we think of rectifying other issues, let's put the bank and they develop a product. Thank you.
All right. We've taken note of your question. We have one more from Honorable Miriam. And you state your name, position, and ask the question straight.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Muhaye Miriam, and I'm the treasurer of the Forum Social Protection. My concern, having interacted with older persons in my constituency, I don't know whether I'm being heard.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah. Many of them say that their next of kin are not allowed to access the funds in case they themselves are sick and not able to go to the pay point. That is a big concern. The next one is, I want to interest the ministry to consider paying the older persons, maybe who have passed on in that quarter. If, for instance, they were to get the money and then they died maybe the previous day before the payday, why can't they be considered so that that money helps to settle the burial expenses instead of it just being taken back to the treasury? That is my concern. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think concern. And those, I think, questions represent those who are online. Honorable Santa Arum has been online as well, but she has decided to come physically, right? So at that point, can you give the concluding question for this particular session, Honorable Santa? Yes, we heard, and he's going to be responding.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I've just traveled from my constituency. When I reach and charge my phone, I join online. But I'm so passionate about this issue of the older person, so I decided, as I was coming to Parliament, and join you. Now, my point of concern is about the 11,000 older persons who missed NERA, National ID registration, and 43,000 who registered but have wrong details on their national ID. Now we are talking about over 50,000 older persons. So now, Madam Chair, for me, this is the biggest question that we also have amongst other issues that is before us. So my question is, these 50,000 plus older persons, I don't know whether we have got an interaction with the NERA people face to face like the way we are doing, because we have a number of questions that we must put before them. So that one would be very, very crucial, so that we see their timeline on how they are handling this question, because it's not a matter of NERA. We know the problems that we have with NERA. Then finally, Madam Chair, I want to lay off your fears. that as far as this is concerned, these are people who really took great care of us, the human resource of this country. And they put all that they had. And this is our turn to really fight for them. You have well said that this is a human right issue. But Madam Chair, I want to conclude by saying that, yes, we have rights, but rights are fought for. Rights are not given. Some of these rights, we have to fight for them. And this is our time that we have to fight for this right in a competitive environment. That's why the parish development model received money which is lying idle. So if we sit back and just sit and say, we negotiate and we don't compete for this money, we don't fight for this money, we are not going to get the goal that we want to achieve. I want to thank you.
Honorable Santa, thank you very much. I think most of the questions have been answered. But I'll take the very, very, very last one. Your name and your very brief question so that we can conclude and attend to the other business.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name's Choto Ibrahim, representing people of Budiope West, Buyende district. For me, if I look at the way we are actually trying to do this thing, is actually the disservice to our people. For the example of Buyende district, this older person are paid 25,000 per month. You subject someone to go and open up a bank account. That is in Kamuli, that is the nearest point. If you're to leave Buyende to come to Kamuli, you're supposed to pay something like 10,000 in transport. Then going back, that is another 10,000. You come to Kamuli to pick 25,000 and you spend 20,000. Is that one economical? Then you go with 5,000. The only alternative in this, you can either use a mobile money. If not that, let the bank move and go to the people. That is the best alternative. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you very much. So I don't know. I think members of parliament will keep discussing this. And our role as the forum is to invite responsible people to give us information. We'll be inviting Neil as well. We need to invite the banks as well so that they tell us the story. But what we know is that a bank is supposed to go to where older persons are. It will be extremely unfortunate if the older persons are trekking from the villages to town, spending the little money that they have for the purposes of operating their accounts. And if it is happening, I think we need to keep sharing information, and particularly with the Forum Secretariat, so that some of those unique cases, I hope they are not very widespread, but our experience in the field indicates that the pay points happen on specific days in communities that are accessible by older persons. The distance was still a lot because it was based on a sub-county. And the discussion was that it should be taken to the parish. And that is where the direction is going. So if there are people who are moving away from the parish, they can't get to the sub-county and then are going further out of the sub-county, I think it is something that we need to make inquiries on so that we see what can be done about it. So, but you can answer those questions and then we close.
Yes, thank you. I will respond to the questions quickly. Centenary, is it thinking of a new product? Because that movement, transport people are spending is an issue. Yes, Centenary, the model we have currently, they are supposed to go to the pay points, which, as you have mentioned, at least we have like 2, 3 within a sub-county. And because of COVID, we had even tried to go lower. We created many more. So up to the parish level in some areas. That's what is happening. So even opening an account, you don't have to go to the bank. The bank comes and opens where you are.
But can they do it with the agency bankers?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, that's right. That's what I was coming on. The favorable product which is being considered, and it was also in the bid of the bank, was to use agent banking. However, agent banking, on our side, we have to use it carefully. You have to take a lot of precautions because MTN used to use agents, and we saw the experience. The agents could manipulate the older person. So what we have agreed with the bank and what they are considering is to identify particular agents. An agent in every maybe parish or every, at least in a sub-county like 3 who are close to the people. So that in future, you don't have to wait for a payday. You can walk in, so long as information comes around, money has been posted on your account, you can walk into your agent, sign for your money. But they are not going to do that also. They have been developing the biometric system as of now. Because of COVID, we didn't encourage them to use the biometric that time. People are saying you are putting your finger and another one puts. But now they have advanced in that. The biometric system will come. Because at least with the biometric, you will know who picked the money. If you go to an agent and your finger has to be there for them to be able, your thumbprint has to be there for you to receive the money. So that will be a control on our part. But the bank is moving towards that. And I believe not in the far future, we should be having that running. Next of kin not being allowed to receive money. That is what we should be encouraging. If it is happening somewhere, then we need to check. But normally we used to have a check. So like you see pensioners, when you receive money after a year, you have to appear. And they see that you are still alive. Because you have experiences where next of kin can continue what? When the person passed on, the next of kin can continue coming to pick. So if this one was stopped, it was maybe a check to cross-check, is this person still around? If they are still energetic once in a way. If not, in our program, we have our monitoring officers. We can sample such a case. People visit the home, see is the person available. To avoid cases where you can continue paying a person for a year even when the person is not there. But generally, why we encourage the next of kin is to save these people who are frail not to move to the side. So that one we can cross-check if there is that complaint, and we have a complaint system. If they are stopped, they launch a complaint in the system and a grievance. So when it comes, then we can trigger a solution. There is send a person to go and verify if the older person is available. Then if they are there, then they get their money. I think those were the major area. The other ones of NIRA, the 11,000. I think you are right that you may have to bring in NIRA, but we are also working with NIRA, at least the 11,000 sort out that question. We are moving on, and the registration in the presentation was already happening.
Okay, so the NIRA issue is a little bit complicated, especially for those that have dates that, okay, the age, errors on the age. So some did not reveal their age. You know, there's a tradition that is growing in our population that you shouldn't tell your date of birth because people will know how old or how young you are. So when registration started, some went into that direction. But then some were mistakes made by data entrants. And to change the date is the most complicated in our NIRA system and anywhere around the world. Because the date of birth is a control measure. It's the identifier of the person, you the person. So what will have to happen is that even when government, everybody of you decides that, you know, the date should change, there is a process. Unfortunately, the law provides that you will have to get an affidavit, what people call a deed poll. Then you go, before the lawyer sign it, you pay money. Then you go to the Uganda Gazette. I think it's about 400,000. Pay it there. You are published in the Gazette. Then take papers back to NIRA, and the corrections are made. And of course, with evidence attesting to your the new particulars that you want to feed into the system. Now, the question of the day, and for members of parliament, are older persons in a position to afford that procedure? Because here because when this matter came to Parliament, Parliament made a decision that NIRA identification be waived for the purposes of SAGE. You remember that one?
Yes.
But when it came to implementation, the issue of opening a bank account comes into play. And what is the regulation saying as per Bank of Uganda? You must have, so there's a conflict between those two positions. So you might have been exempted using the NIRA card for the purposes of registration, but because you must use the bank account, the different organs of government must speak together. And that is the discussion that we need to have. Is it possible to ask for the waiver at all fronts? Because in NIRA, it had worked. At banks, it became a little bit of a problem. So that is something that we need to think about regarding NIRA. So the issue of inadequate budget provision, we have a shortfall of 27 billion. That was captured in the National Budget Framework paper you just passed. Can we work together to ensure that this money is voted for the next year's next financial year? Because if it is not, if we are trying to solve the problem of arrears for 36 billion, if this one comes as a shortfall, we are going to create another layer of arrears. And then we are going to be having our population subjected to uncertainties regarding to their entitled payments. And when that happens, and having told them that you are the guys who do appropriation, it becomes very difficult in some cases to tell people that you are doing the job very, very, very well. And we think as a forum that a platform of engagement interaction like this is very helpful for giving you information, giving you exposure, and I want to request the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to create space so that some of us who have time, we can go to the field and see what is taking place in some selected districts. So we interrogate the issue of distance to the pay point from the practical perspective. We interrogate the issue of how people are receiving this money, how it is impacting on them, and what are the challenges. So that when we are speaking to these matters, we are speaking with authority. So I want to request the Honorable Oporot Richard, who was the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection Chairperson, and who is still with us at the forum, to give a vote of thanks to you for coming. Then afterwards, to request Honorable Cyrus Algon to invite our chairperson to close. And then we shall have a group photo here, and then we will have finished our interactions. But I want us to go with these as our key action points that we need to look at in this budget period that we are in. The areas, we talked about it, the inadequate budget provision, the NIRA issue is very prominent, and the issue of eligibility. Those are the key things that I think are very critical in as far as the SAGE implementation is concerned. So, Honorable Oporot, we had said 70 years, there is a debate between 75 and 70, but the value of the grant from the recommendation to Parliament was 30,000. Yeah. Sure. This is coming from the presentations I've just received, but the one that we had committed to during the previous was revising it to 30,000, and the age coming down to 70,000. Rather to 75. Yes, so before Honorable Oporot comes in, we have a guest of 1 minute, just 1 minute, and I think it's also very important. And we need to encourage it for our older persons at the pay points so that they can get this kind of information in 1 minute. Is that sufficient?
Yes, let's stand up, please. You hold hands like this. They just gave me 1 minute, so I need to utilize it to maximum. Our 2 feet together, hands twisted like this. It's not a punishment, it's our help. We go on the sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. All the hands open like this. With a smile. Because it's not a punishment, okay? You have to perform above and beyond expectations. You go aside. 1, 2, 3, sideways. 4, 5, 6, with a smile. Make your body. Manage your body. 8, 9, and 10. Now we clap. Just clap. Keep clapping. Keep clapping. Keep clapping. Thank you God for that. Keep clapping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Finally, put your hands straight up front. Straight up front. Straight up front. Straight up front. So we are going to open up and then close back 10 times. Okay, open. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Finally, ladies, hands up, and gentlemen, touch your feet. Ladies, hands up, gentlemen, touch your feet. I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Sit down. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's very important, and a meeting of people provides an opportunity for many things. And as members of parliament, we could utilize the pay points when people are receiving money as they are waiting in line. You could provide them with quite a number of services, and one of them could be actually talking to them. They would be extremely happy that the member of parliament has talked to them. So the Right Honorable Oporot, you can vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I want to thank the Honorable Chair for this session, thank the presenters and the Ministry of Gender officials around, honorable members of Parliament, the Secretariat. This has been a very wonderful moment of interaction, and especially when you hear concerns at the same time with proposals on the way forward, I see a commitment to addressing the challenges that are faced by our older persons. And I want to thank the honorable members of Parliament for the commitments you have expressed. For all those issues that we are raising, some of them we have been battling with them from the previous parliaments, and it's just exciting to see that the fire is continuing to burn. We will be very grateful to see your commitment sustained and the results achieved. And I want to say the proposal to have NIRA and maybe the banks also to a discussion like this is one other step towards addressing this issue. And I look forward to that moment, and I'm sure we shall reach there. So for everybody who has endeavored to sacrifice whatever comforts they were enjoying to be here for this purpose, please thanks. And I keep saying, we reap what we sow. I'm sure what we are sowing is a gesture that the older persons deserve. And at our time, someone will also be sowing for us. And I don't know what we shall harvest. Thank you very much. God bless us all. I wish the best for the older persons and all the vulnerable persons. At this point, I want, did you say I hand over to Honorable Silas Saugon. So Honorable Silas Saugon, please kindly receive this from me. Unfortunately, I have not sanitized it. So handing over, I am still Polot Jacob Richards, the former chairman of the forum, and I'm still available.
And he's the senior advisor to the forum. And I thought that my work would be, first of all, to ask us to clap for the chair before I invite the chair this way. You know, the former chair is the one who drove the forum towards establishing the first figures that you saw there. The first people who were registered into this, starting from areas like Katakwi, then we got the stories of Anolum and buying a goat. It grew into something bigger stories from small startings. And that is what this forum can be able to do. And Chair, Madam Chair, I'm so delighted that you are driving this forum with the utmost and the best energy. And you know, we copy from you. When a leader responds in a certain way, we tend to copy. When you start running, we run without even asking, why are you running? So, therefore, what you are trying to portray here is what we are going to follow. Colleagues, I will request that we simply do a few things. One, let us first clap for the chairperson of the forum. At least before I invite her to say something, can we also clap for the coordinator of the forum? And then we clap for the presenter because he did a great job. Sometimes we forget about the media. These are the people who escalate our issues to the population. Can we clap for them? Can we clap for Honorable Babadiri? She's one of the most senior. If there is a unique forum, this forum is unique because they took the position of making sure that we have colleagues who were in the previous parliaments in the executive. Yes. So she's representing those who were in the parliament before. And she's doing such a wonderful job. Let us clap for her. Honorable Santa, I know the passion that you have for social protection. And because of you, the few of you who started with this, the forum is somewhere now. Can we clap for the executive and those who were there before? I will not ask you to clap for myself because for me I have not contributed anything. But but what I wanted to request is for us to clap for ourselves because I can tell you the most difficult thing is for you to have more than 10 members of parliament under one roof. Sure. And you keep them for more than 1 hour. Sure. It is very difficult. I say so because I've been involved in leadership of forums. I know it is very difficult. If you have 1 or 2 who stay with you, go down your knees and thank God. To get a member of parliament and keep him there for more than 1 hour, you are blessed. And if one decides to come to your constituency, never let down such a member of parliament. Very difficult. Advocacy at national level is for members of parliament. That one I know. The response that we need to give to the issues of social protection should be equivalent to the response that the Western world is giving to the attack by Russia towards Ukraine. That's the kind of response that we need now. America has already given $2.5 billion towards helping the Ukrainians. Germany has sent an assortment of armor, everything, military aid. EU for the first time has decided to send military support to Ukraine. That's the kind of support, not military, but that's the kind of support at that level that we need to give towards the older persons. I say that because I know, I can tell you colleagues, right now, the biggest gift that we need to give to the older persons is our role in playing our mandate in 2 fronts. 1, oversight. 2, appropriation. Nobody should deceive you that they are the ones who are making the budgets for Uganda. It is you. The power is in this house. Is in this house to decide what happens in this country. In a country where there is a democracy, a parliament matters a lot. We have the decision. We have the power. It is within our hands to take a decision and make sure that these people once and for all are sorted. We have very few challenges here. Areas, the money to be increased, the age to be lowered, and those are the issues. And we shall be there. Can we fail really to do that? No. With those few words, very few indeed. Let me invite the chairperson, because at least I'm not well informed more than she is. She is the most informed person about this. I request that graciously you say something as you close this meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Silas. Honorable Silas, I love him whenever he talks because he's so humorous. I want to take this opportunity, honorable members, to thank you again, like I thanked you before, for having this interest and passion to serve the older persons. And this is only one of the very many interactions we are going to get at the service of our older persons. SAGE, and even we are going to think about broadening the social protection beyond SAGE, because there are very many vulnerable persons now who are out there that cannot be reached because there is no policy framework, there is no institutionalized way of doing it. You know that there are 100,000 for teachers has hit a snag because there is no system that can really get all of them. And so I think they have to go back to the drawing board. And for us as a parliament, we are supposed to advocate for a policy framework and legal framework that makes sure we have a social protection system that is based on the humanitarian ground, that is going to track you from the cradle to the deathbed. That is what we are saying, from life cycle, from the time the woman conceives, social protection must follow this person. Until the baby is out, the baby should be followed, whether it can complete P7, whether it will complete senior 4, whether it has fallen out. Where do we find it? And when Mr. Kasaiza was presenting, he told you they have a single registry in the National Social Protection Policy. The single registry has no utilizable data because there is no financing for it. It is supposed to enroll all of us so that whoever falls into economic shocks is tracked. Whoever comes out of economic shock is tracked. And when we want to give Nabanja money next time, we don't need to tell people to bring their identity cards, because the identity cards that NIRA gave us, no one's ID is written on vulnerable. Do we have such a card where you present and it says you are vulnerable? So that is how money ended up going to wrong hands, because even ID would not track who was vulnerable and who was not. And so, honorable members, some of the issues where we have to drum for financing is the National Social Protection Policy. But you remember that the Right Honorable Speaker, Jacob Bolanya, emphasized that we are not going to start speaking out of sentiments on the floor. We should speak with confidence from evidence, from the law, from policy, from obligations. And allow me quickly to take you through on what do we claim this. The social protection is a government priority. It is grounded in the national legal and policy framework. First of all, the NRM manifesto I mentioned, the Uganda's National Development Plan 1, 2, and 3 outline objectives for expanding social protection to reduce vulnerability and enhance productivity of the country's human resource. Chapter 4 of Uganda's constitution stipulates the rights and freedoms of every Ugandan, including the right to basics of life and a life of dignity. Article 14 of the Constitution states that all Ugandans enjoy rights and opportunities and access to education, health services, decent shelter,
adequate clothing, food security, and pension and retirement benefits. The national objectives and principles of state policy state that the state shall make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged. Uganda, of course, is signed up to regional commitments on social protection. The Livingstone Call to Action of 2006 calls on all countries of Africa to put in place costed plans for the implementation of the direct income distribution programs. The African Union Social Policy Framework 2008, which calls on member states to recognize that social protection is a state obligation with provisions in the national legislations. Vision 2040 also spells the same. SDGs are telling us to leave no one behind. Should we leave the older persons behind? Can there be any development in this Uganda when the older persons are not there? We are obligated to the SDGs. And of course, the National Social Protection Policy mentions the role of all of us and all the different people and players in the implementation of ensuring achievement of social protection at the grassroots. So, honorable members, I would like to re-echo that we are not claiming a favor. These are obligations that the government has taken. And if they are not going to live to them, we shall have played badly. We shall have done a disservice to this government and to the older persons. Yes, Judith said, the principle is one of them. But I want to remind you that 53% of cabinet are older persons. So we want to see it on the table. We want to see it on the cabinet discussions. They cannot afford not to talk about older persons, which they are. And so to remind them, I think, is not to do them a disservice. So let them be reminded that they are already there when we are potential candidates. And so we need to be reminded also that we are not planning for these older persons. Actually, we are planning for ourselves in future so that we may age gracefully. So, honorable members, I thank you so much. And of course, I'm trying to charge your commitment. And I will always be glad to see any one of you on the floor and trying to put government to task to ensure that they live to the promises to the older persons. I want to recognize and raise Honorable Peggy Wako-Joy, who represents the older persons in Uganda. Just rise up and they see you. She represents them nationally, and I'm very sure we are in her constituency. We are discussing your constituency. So I want to thank you very much, honorable members. I wish you a very happy afternoon, blessed afternoon. Let's keep the fire burning. And I invite you to a photo session to this workshop.